Hey, hi, peeps and folks. My social media family of any subscribers, as well as any visitors to that bin of my own immediate personal social media channel and or chat room or comment section is what I meant to say. Prince of Peace continue regulate my Mac, put out a Prince of Darkness to confuse my speech. Not that I had meant to sound and seem like Elmer Fudd or slashed along with the speech impediment, speech defect. Well, I would rather sound like, slashed along than Elmer Fudd, if you know what I mean. Read between lines, fill in the blanks. And hopefully I would rather sound like slashed along than our president dickhead of our nation's capital, or president prick of some such. Is that what I meant to say? Oh Lord, forgive me for that last mention. I mean, after all, he is quite a cocksucker. In other words, you look at it from one point of view, if not another. Though that does not condone my using those type of words that would destroy my otherwise good Christian character or destroy my testimony in Christ's name. But then, after all, he is himself an abortionist supporter, not to mention one who supports the zombie apocalypse otherwise, I'm speaking in hieroglyphics of code of the modern day language. Can't speak, or go about quoting verbatim in a more obvious or specific kind of way, unless YouTube, aka YouTube, could possibly reprimand me. No, I'm not saying that I'm against the, but then neither am I for it, or I don't, or I'm not in agreement. I'm not saying that I don't support it, but then I'm not saying that I do support it either. I'm in the neutral zone. As some would consider it to be the safety zone, but I have to do what the God of my own understanding tells me. And he wants, and not to mean to seem as well as sound like as if I'm contradicting myself. He wants us to be at peace with others, but not compromise our religious, supernatural, spiritual beliefs. Okay. And speaking upon those matters now that you come to mind, and moving right along on to other things as our kissing cousins, that are supposed so-called kissing cousins across the great waters of the Pacific or Atlantic per se, for the supposed so-called mother country. Our kissing cousins being of the Brits or British or English for Great Britain or England, that had given birth to our own supposed so-called Democratic Republic or democracy. Not that I had meant to sound and seem like I'm wagging a dog, but then that's not the last mention before last is not the original topic of discussion that I wish to go about speaking upon to debate of a given argument or issue at hand for the subject matter in question, or rather controversial one, because this one is about, well, some would think, unfortunately, it's about, certain neighbors, once again, being of whom would be commonly called or commonly known as proverbial neighbors from damn hell. And not that I mean to go into overkill in speaking upon some such matters to possibly, kill some, if not all, persons' eardrums. But it has been brought to mind, and I felt that of the need to speak upon some such matters once again, as it has been likewise placed upon my heart, hopefully more for the greater glory. Otherwise, I would not be doing it anytime too soon enough. You know. And as this one flesh and blood brother of mine had brought it to mind, you know, being of a pure sibling of a relative from my own immediate personal family household with his own present life crisis in due regard in reference to the same in the said in question. You know, the former previous primates and was I know from my own personal experiences what's that what what that is like, you know, in due regard in reference to some such neighbors from down hell, past and present. And whereas my present neighbors from down hell are more creepy or more creepy or whatever I have ever said, you know. And especially if they could possibly be fumigating, as in pumping knockout gas into another neighbor's or other neighbors, into another neighbor's space of residence or into other neighbors' apartments for whatever reason or purposes, especially if they are of the likes of, you know, secret sexual predators or closet rapists and or pedophiles, you know. And whereas it would have been bad enough if I would become subject to experiencing that, you know, and like say, or how you say, not only without my permission, but without my knowledge, at the last place of residence of an apartment where I was paying monthly utilities, etc., or whatever I said, for a multiracial and less poverty-stricken or less crime-ridden Vicentiary neighborhood community, than to come here as I moved to this here predominantly ethnic minority, black and more poverty stricken or more crime ridden Vicente area neighborhood community upon short notice, just to keep from becoming homeless, and then to think that the present proverbial neighbors from damn hell or public nuisance problem neighbors could possibly be even more creeps than crazies. So therefore that would mean that the last neighbors from damn hell were more crazy or crazier compared to how my present neighbors from damn hell are are more creepy or creepier. You know, that's when we're more crazy or crazier. Whereas my present neighbors from down here are more creepy or creepier. You know, and it's like every time lately when I get back to my place of resident apartment here, you know, whereas I could already be feeling weak and tired for some reason or another. And then I get back here, I'm like, I find myself nodding out. And I said, this range, you know, I'm nodding out just as fast, you know, like it just get me thinking like they could possibly put some knockout gas in my place as creepier neighbors from damn hell, much more than my last neighbors from damn hell could have possibly contemplated doing so for my last place of residence for another building at this location that I moved from before I come here. Because I be finding that to be the case of situation for the afternoon hours, you know, and they be like making like with the diversion noises, likewise, like the last neighbors from down here to cover up the sounds of they themselves possibly bothering with my apartment door to my present place of residence. Ain't that a blip? Man, trust me when I say these neighbors in this damn building, they are that much more creepy bastards and bitches. Oh, excuse my language, from French. They more creepy, you know, cowboys and cowgirls of the urban jungle. You hear what I'm saying? I mean, creepy, like creepy, creep. To compliment that one vintage classic pop culture song number. That's why I creep or we creep. Yeah, we creep around. Bum, 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 bum. And men get sexually assaulted, raped also, or even so, maybe not as much as their woman rival counterparts. I mean, there is a great percentage of women who are closet rapists and pedophiles, although not as much as there are uh, male rival counterparts of theirs being a men. You know, Catholic priest wannabes for that matter. Yeah. So I had thought of it with a mind's intentions to compose and produce once again a social media broadcast of video in regard on reference to proverbial neighbors from damn hell. After this one flesh and blood brother of mine, of my own immediate personal family household of a pure sibling had brought it to mind how he himself has become subject to experiencing once again his own proverbial neighbors from damn hell, you know. Whereas it's bad enough when the lights be like carrying on with the loud noises, but when they creep that much more, I would think that would freak the average individual person or whatever they walk a life out. That would freak out the average individual person of whatever race and whatever walk life, fashion, society, lifestyle preference of either or both two sexual genders that much more. Well, it all depends on the individual person. But then if I had to choose between one or the other, not that I mean to sound, it seemed like I would be contradicting myself. Although I would, or regardless of how I would have to be that much more alert when my present neighbors from damn hell get to creeping. But then I don't have to hear as much noises of an extreme excessive nature like I would hear coming from my last verbal neighbors from down hell at the last building address location I was at before I moved to this one, to resume paying annual monthly rent, utilities, and home phone. Well, utility, and then I have yet to establish home phone services. What I meant to say, you know, once I get the necessary business taken care of. A user has asked, what's my name? Well, you can call me Keith or Kevin if you like, either or, and leave it at that. I'm not giving out my last name, although I could. I mean, well, you can find me on other social media platform with my last name as well as my first name. But then at one time or another, I had given my full name for this particular social media app before I had changed the title, the name title of my social media channel altogether, for obvious and evidential reasons and or purposes. Read between the lines, fill in the blanks, and as that of my person, that being of my person, or whatever I said, be I butchering the English language, American dialect, for umpteen consecutive time or not. Whereas my person can get more than enough of my own share of stalkers. Yeah, from internet trolls to crank callers to stalkers to neighbors from damn hell. And then more than quite a few of them moonlight as some such other characters in some sorts of such type. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so I get back to my place of residence here, report. Thank you for that, user by the username of L30. So I get back to my place of residence, getting back to some of such other. And I find myself for the consecutive day in a row, now within a really relatively short time frame period. And I'm like saying, this is most unusual and or not to mention likewise unnatural. I'm like saying somebody has to be pumping some kind of knockout gas in my place of residence, atmosphere, of apartment for me to nod out like this because this is unnatural, And whereas I may have to start drinking more coffee, when it comes to that for the afternoon, because I don't like to think that somebody could knock me out, by means of that nature, and then from there venture upon my premises of property after jimmying in the lock to my place of residence, apartment, and then could possibly not only go through my personal effects, belongings, possession, but worse yet, could possibly attempt to bother with me, without my permission, not to mention without my knowledge, or without my knowledge as well as without my permission or consent, and whereas I would really feel violated, who wouldn't, you know. Anyway, though, getting back to my brother's neighbors from down here, though, he was saying, this certain neighbor, big pot belly, drunk and hype, like he likes to carry on like the midnight cowboy and make with extreme incessant noise of different sorts of types and be the party animal with some such as homies, and they be like, cussing and swearing, talking a lot of or a bunch of yin yang, yada yada yada, woo woo woo, read between the lines, fill in the blanks, even so much as talking about what they would do to cops or police officers. And I'm like saying, no, you don't want to go there. I'm thinking in my head. I'm like saying, and thinking about these neighbors from down hell of my brother. They got something for you cop killers, I'm like saying, because if any police officers get wind of that, man, these neighbors from damn hell of my brother will be out for the count. Not that I'm saying that, he should drop a dime on them. If he were to contemplate doing so, then anonymously, quite naturally, Yeah, because I drop a dime on them myself, and hopefully only anonymously likewise, because police officers don't like to be hearing that, some poop bust and piss ass street punks or thugs talking about how they could, snuff a cop just like they would another rival of a gang banger, a street punk, a skinhead. They don't like to hear that, for obvious and evidential reading purposes that they wouldn't, being which should prove to have become or be a no-brainer, as in self-explanatory, And whereas this one brother of mine, he like saying, though lately they haven't been making as much noise as before, but they're still making quite a bit of it, whereas he himself had to go to his living room area, then continue to stay in his bedroom, and then from there hope that the noise would die down, whereas he has complained to the management about them, at least anonymously, if not to the police as yet anonymously. Yeah, I have my own share of these proverbial neighbors from damn hell, the public nuisance problem neighbors. There's some real creepy idiots and sickle. Well, they're not so much as idiots compared to being creeps. Well, I know they're sick regardless. And they're much more creepier than my last neighbors from damn hell, making like some spoofs to sit by the door. I mean, what I meant to say, correction, making like midnight cowboys to worse yet, spoofs to sit by the door. You know, these neighbors here, for my present place of residence that much more, making like the creeps that they are acting more creepy than the other neighbors from down here who were more crazy, like more obvious. You could hear them more, but these are more creepy, much more creepier. So I have to be even more alert when it comes to them. So anyway, though, getting back to my brother's neighbors from down here, though, I was like saying, well, why don't you just go ahead and get a tape recorder and get some tape cassettes and start recording them, so that from there, when they get out of pocket, making with the loud noises of different sorts or types, from there you would have it on record, to inform the management as well as the police, and they could issue a city citation against them. All I'm saying, I'll try to find within my own personal facts belongings or possessions to take recorder for you, but you can always go to a Home Depot, electronics business store to make a purchase of some. So I'm sure they have some affordable ones at prices that are suitable or whatever I said, whatever I said. That's not exactly what I mentioned. There's one way of putting, or within an affordable price range. Oh, that thought y'all. Yeah, because that's really like, a violation. That would be a violation of any neighbor from downhill's apartment rental agreement lease, as well as it would show so much disrespect for their fellow neighbors, when they continue to carry on like that for the likes of their kind, because I know from my own personal experiences what it's like for proverbial neighbors from downhill or public nuisances or problem neighbors to cause me to lose sleep or to have irregular sleeping patterns, and I don't be liking that, because many times I have woke up late and started my day off late at the last place of residence. As the last place of residence I was at for building address location, vicinity area neighborhood community, paying annual monthly rent, and I didn't like that at all, I mean, but anyway, so that's the subject matter and the content of this here particular social media broadcast. The subject matter or topic of discussion, given argument to be debated with the many different views and opinions to be associated with and representing thereof, and it's just so stupid. It's sick of certain neighbors to do that, to violate their apartment rental leases and at the same time disrespect the rights and privileges of their fellow neighbors, And you can't really do anything much than to go through all the proper policies and procedures or protocol to be a responsible neighbor that's taking a mature approach, because you don't want to give them ammo to work with, so that they could attempt to, flip the script on you and say, well, he or she is just as much of a conflict of interest as one claims that I am, But then a neighbor from downhill did flip the script on me at one time or another. By how he himself, out of resentment, he retaliated for the many times that I had complained about him to the management as well as to the police. And whereas he retaliated by flipping the script, having the management give me the walking paper that he should have gotten, something similar to, some such other, though it wouldn't be official, but if I didn't get out of there soon enough, it would have become official, And because the white landlords that I was trying to establish rapport with to become future landlord were playing games, for much more preferred neighborhood communities, for vicinity areas, being of which are multiracial, and don't do that, Now I may have to silence your chat if this other user says kill your neighbor. Don't do that. That will give me. I'm gonna have to put you in timeout because I don't like that statement. Use it with the username of Unstoppable. I have to put you in timeout. First of all, because I don't like that statement. Yeah. Anyway, though, getting back to some of such other. So he flipped the script on me. Sorry about that, you all. there's a user that come in and he's talking about kill your neighbor. I yes, that would be. That would be a great conflict of interest, you know. Anyway, getting back to some of such others. So he himself convinced the management to give me walking papers, you know, as he retaliated out of resentment. And they believed his crap, you know, for the simple reason being that the developments that resulted in vice versa was, whereas I would sometimes yell out within the area of my apartment of a place of residence, and sometimes was like, "Hey, could you tone it down, you son of a ignorant, insane bastard?" That's who be, you know. Could you? And so it's like he had provoked that, so that in the midst of him planning some or such, he would have the management, any real estate representative personnel for the business office upon the same premise of property of the building where I was at, paying annual monthly rent, eavesdrop by my apartment door. Hear me ranting and raving, cussing and swearing about him. And then from there, they confused me with the character that he was coming off as, see? And I was like, what? I was like, seriously though? Because one day when I went to pay rent, and they're like saying, nah, here's something else for you. And like this one real estate personnel representative has made it a habit before to slip me something of a warning, of a slip of paper folded up. So she gives me some of such of a copy of my that a rent receipt copy folded up along with some of such other, warning me to, like I'm the troublemaker, tone it down, cut it out, or get out. You know, like what? And then they took it to another level. You know, they like upped the ante and told me that much more, that you know I'm being given an ultimatum, the same ultimatum that the neighbor from damn hell should have got. You know, and so on short notice, I've had to consider moving into a predominantly ethnic minority black or nigger neighborhood. Not that all black neighborhoods are nigger neighborhoods, you know, and a much more poverty stricken, more crime ridden neighborhood compared to a much more preferred one, because the white landlord for the preferred neighborhoods were multiracial, less poverty strict, less poverty stricken, and less crime ridden one. Is what I meant to say. Prince of Peace, continue regular my man compared to our Prince Dr. Street, where they were playing games in their own right, though they had more real estate property. I mean, they would hold me hostage over phone, or they would send me on a wild goose chase looking for a place of residence of supposed so-called available apartment vacancy that they had lined up. And I wondered if they did that just to try to get more money out of me, more than likely, more often than not they did. And I said, I cannot deal with this. I'm on a deadline, you know. I cannot play these footsie under the table games. So I had to reconsider. I had to reconsider the alternative option, being which is to either move into or move back into, as well as possibly stay with some relatives or friends of my family, and that is, you know, the other alternative option being of which is to move into a black neighborhood of a more poverty stricken, crime ridden, more crime ridden one. As I was saying, here I am now, in order to keep from becoming homeless. Can you feel me? So anyway, though, I'm about to bring these matters to a close. You know, I just thought to share that with you all, as my own flesh and blood brother had brought it to mind what he's going through with his present neighbor from damn hell, saying how they carrying on with all the noise making, you know, causing him to lose sleep. And I'm like saying, get a tape recorder. I'm texting him, you know. Get a tape recorder. I text him, didn't tell him over the phone during a live conversation, so that his neighbor from damn hell won't get wind of it, so he can get the goods on his own neighbor from down here. I said, get a tape recorder and tape cassettes, and then start recording his daily and nightly antics, especially his nightly routine of becoming a real, you know, whatchamacallit. You know, you hear what I'm saying? Hold that thought. I was meaning to comment on what you were saying. User by the username of L30, but this other user is coming off like still another user that was coming off like an internet troll. Whereas I have had to put him in time out, as you know, the user with the username of Unstoppable, because he's saying something else that is stupid once again. I cannot tolerate this here nonsense. I'm going to have to put him in another time out. If he persists, I will block him in due time. And very few persons, being of whom I block, do I permit re-access to my own social media channel for YouTube, aka YouTube, and likewise to my social media chat room or comment section, because he's being just as rude as this other, or just as disrespectful. I'm sorry, and I am sounding like Sly along with the speech impediment. Speech, in fact, hopefully not equally as well as much as Ronald Wilson Reagan with the memory lapse episode. But he sounded just as disrespectful as his other user that I had become subject to experiencing with a Muslim sounding username, Muhammad Khalis something, Al Khalis. I can't remember. Anyway, I haven't had to put him in a timeout and then contemplate blocking him. But anyway, though, on this last note of interest, and getting back to some of such other before I conclude some of such matter, usually, I would, well, hopefully most, if not all, or half, or 1/3 of my social media broadcast videos would be like where I would have given a basic intro and the footnotes, and then commented on something of a subject matter, or be I were to speak upon one or a couple, few or four more for that matter, depending on how I feel. And last but not least, I will give the conclusion of the matter. What I may say, Prince of Peace, continue regular man compared to how the Prince of Darkness, to conclude my speech by sharing with one and many the gospel message of our Lord and Savior, the Christ, and beside the deliverer, Rabbi of rabbis, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, Prince of Peace, as I am a believing God, as a Christian, aka Protestant. Not supposed to so-called Catholic, not supposed to so-called Jehovah Witness, not supposed to so-called Latter-day Saints, being that because we Protestant Christians are the real Latter-day Saints. But anyway, though, this one brother of mine, my flesh and blood, getting back to him and all, and whereas he was saying in more words or less, how he's having trouble with his own present neighbor from down here, and I was like saying, get a tape recorder and get some cassettes and record him. That way you can present it onto the police. They can listen to it, as well as the management of the building. They can issue your own present neighbor from down here a city citation to either tone it down, stop the madness, the noise, or at least tone it down, or face the serious consequences. But anyway, on this last note of interest, I would like to say, and that is, if you haven't not gotten Christ, well, so I paraphrase, not quote exactly, and that is, if you have not gotten Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, I would hope that you would think to do so now while the blood is still running warm in your veins. But I recognize and realize what He Himself had done on the cross of Calvary, so that you won't have to go to damn hell when you leave this world, but so that you could become or be permitted to become a citizen of the kingdom of heaven when you do. Y'all take care and be safe, be blessed, not stressed. We out. Peace.